So how about that, Blaz, huh? We're going back to get more content out of the 15-year-old Chilean wonder kid. Or is he 16 at this point? I don't know. It feels like even though he's only been really on this scene at the international level for less than a year, he's been all over the place. Quite the year for the young kid. Of course, he had the second place finish over at Capcom Cup, where Kakadu defeated him in a $900,000 money match. But, you know, walking away with 100K is not too shabby for him. He also got second place just recently at Evo France, where Lachar got his revenge over Blaz, taking it in the grand finals, you know, after Blaz beat him 3-0 in that Capcom Cup run a few months prior. And then, of course, we also remember that Blaz got second at his at another super premiere against Xiaohai, this time losing a $120,000 money match, but taking away a clean 130K from that tournament. So all in all, not a bad rookie year for the kid from Chile. And in that match, though, you know, he did end up leaving that set a little flustered as the freeze frame here shows right after he gave props to Xiaohai. You know, he went for the classic tussle of the hair, you know, whenever he can't quite figure out what to do in the moment. And Xiaohai walked away this Esports World Cup as the two-time champion. But of course, a big part of the story is this little demon here on the left side of the screen, the matchup with Mai. Xiaohai went M Bison in that final first of 5 set between Xiaohai and Blaz in the grand finals. Got kind of washed and then switched over to Mai and ran away with it a little bit. It did come down to the final game, final round. It was a very close set, but the Mai was a big part in the journey to getting Xiaohai that first place victory. But, you know, unlike against Kakadu, who has since retired, Blaz can eventually get his revenge, of course, against Xiaohai at Street Fighter League USA. At the time of this recording, we're about to start day 3 of the tournament. It's going to be done in 2 sprints, 4 days, a couple weeks break, 4 days, and then the playoffs. And at this point, we already had Blaz go up against Xiaohai because Blaz is in the mix in Street Fighter League USA for the very first time as a part of 2Game. This is a Brazilian-based org who sponsors Brazilian players, but also recently sponsored Blaz. And in their debut showing, they have been cooking up the competition. And they actually went up against KSG, Kushao Gaming, I believe is how you pronounce it, which is the team that has Xiaohai. And, you know, in that first showing, Janino Ross and Brian Job got the job done and took the first 2 sets to put up 20 points on the board to lay it up to Blaz for the anchor position, first to 3. And of course, it came down to Blaz versus Xiaohai in that set. And the question here was, what character pick would Blaz be going for in this moment? Because they were alternating characters before in the Esports World Cup set. But in the end, after Xiaohai switched to Mai and started running away with it a little bit, Blaz brought it to a final game, final round finish with the Ken. And this was a really close set, and it featured some really interesting tech. I mean, here in the final round, you can see some of the tech employed. The Drive Rush OS after the perfect parry on the regular fan there to get in, that started the whole momentum for Blaz in this final round. And he almost won the whole thing, man. But Xiaohai, with the nerves of steel, did the $120,000 wake-up DP. If that was blocked, it was over. Found the trade combo into the CA, and the rest is history. Xiaohai went on to be the 2-time champ right here. But it was really close. It was really close, and Blaz, even though he had some moments where he looked a little out of it, definitely had some matchup-specific tech ready to go. So the question was, is he going to use Ryu? Is he going to use Ken? Well, turns out it was Sagat. The Sagat pick from Blaz and his chance to get revenge against Xiaohai. This was a really shocking pick, but it shouldn't be that surprising. It's not like Blaz hasn't shown off his Sagat before. So he did use Sagat against Dogura in his Evo France top 8 run to second place. And, you know, recently he's been using a lot of Sagat if you've been paying attention to his gameplay online. He did the Kumite against all of the South American players and was cooking the competition with some Sagat. So, you know, he has one ready. But to bust it out in this specific matchup was definitely a bit of a surprise for such a high-stakes match, not just for the Street Fighter League tournament itself, but for the stakes, personal stakes between these 2 players. And, well, how did it go? We'll let this little clip do a bit of the talking here.
And also, being at the right ranges to get plus frames, you see the screen shake. It's his turn again, and it's so dangerous having to block a standing medium punch.
Did you see it?
Being +2, and also being at the right...
Did you see it? This little interaction right here tells a big story of how this set goes. So here it's just a random moment I found from the set where Blaz sets up an interesting string here. You know, he gets the plus on block string with the drive rush overhead stand medium, finds a very common crouching medium punch to fireball into immediate jab, reading the interaction of Xiaohai trying to occupy screen space after blocking the string with a projectile, nullifying it with Sagat's stand light punch. And in this interaction, it almost seems inconsequential, right? You know, Mai, she's a big problem in this game right now. Many people consider her to be the best character in the game, and her fans have a lot to do with it. The uncharged versions of her fans, you can interact with normals and just jab them off the screen. However, the reward from it is often not that good, and generally people kind of strayed away from that strategy and found it to be not that rewarding, and oftentimes just led you to get hit. However, there is a reason why Sagat comes into play here. And for one, let's take a look at Ryu here. This is Ryu's stand light punch. So you can see the hitbox from Ryu's stand light punch. Not too bad, not too shabby. You know, it covers where his arm goes, but it gets totally mogged by this beast of a 5-frame jab from Sagat. Look at the standing light punch here. It also extends a tiny bit past his knuckle. Like, it's like the knuckle maybe grazes right outside of the hitbox here, but the animation itself just shows you how much range and what a beefy ass hitbox this standing light punch has here. And if you look at the raw numbers of the range data, Ryu 5LP 1.01 range, same range as Ken 5LP 1.01, Sagat 1.26. So it's not just your eyes deceiving you. This stand jab has mad range. It's tied with M Bison, and I think only Blanca has more range on his 5LP. So it definitely has way more range, which makes it also a lot easier to interact with Mai's fans. Because the big problem is, if you try to just jab Mai's fans, you know, you can have some issues interacting with it. So let's go ahead and go into training mode and show how you could try to interact with Mai with Ryu. So with Mai here throwing the fan, you can definitely jab the fans, but in general, it's not easy to do that. You kind of have to do it really early for up close, and you can definitely just get counter hit. Like here, I'm actually trying to interact with it. You got to get that jab out really quick to interact with it. And in general, like moves with better hitboxes are just easier to nullify. Like it's just way easier to use stand medium, for example, to stop the fan, but it's a lot slower of an attack. And the big problem too with this is with Ryu, like if I clear the fans, what do I really get from it, right? At a lot of ranges, I'm not going to get too much. If you get it up close, there is some counterplay and some conversions you can get. There we go. So theoretically, with Ryu, you can jab Mai's fan and try to get a punish, but it's to be done really close to the point where it's really difficult to set up, and you often just get counter hit trying it. And of course, there was other tech that people were playing with, such as doing this. The jab into drive rush cancel on the fan. So that is an option. However, once again, it's a little finicky because it's hard to interact sometimes with the jab hitbox with the fans, and it costs 3 bars. So sometimes it's a little costly. Now, I'm not going to say that this isn't a great counterplay to use. If it's going to close out, definitely go for it. It's something people can do, but it's expensive to rely on. It's not something you can consistently rely on for all these interactions when it's a meterless option that Mai can just cycle through continuously. Now, on the other hand, let's take a look at Sagat. I think Sagat actually has a lot of good options versus Mai to begin with, even outside of interacting with her fans by clearing them. Just by the fact that I think he can get a lot of projectiles on the screen a lot more efficiently than a character like Ryu, and he has a lot of really far range moves. He also has things like Stand MK, which can just completely nullify the fans entirely. Like if these interact at the same time, Sagat can potentially just get a knockdown from mad far. So that's really strong. So Sagat has a bunch of options that make Mai a little bit more uncomfortable, I would say, than the average Shoto character, just due to the increased fireball presence, increased range, and things of that nature. But Blaz, of course, takes it a step further. Okay, we got the highlights here, courtesy of High Fight. Check this one out. So he cleared the fan like before, jabbing the projectile to the string, and look at this one. look how much damage Xiaohai is taking for trying to take his turn back after blocking crouching medium punch into fireball. So you could see how Blaz is setting this up. This has become the technique. He sets up the string into the fireball and likes to press jab there just in case Xiaohai tries to take his turn back with another projectile. It's a continuous sequence. And then here he actually sees it and presses towards heavy kick. So this is the great equalizer with Sagat. Sagat has this massive button. This is 16 frame startup and goes super far forward, and is able to cause a punish counter crumple knockdown for full combo conversions. Now, obviously, the downside to this move, because it is really powerful, it whiffs on crouchers, right? It just completely whiffs no matter what. That's what prevents this move from just being top one, spammable, broken button. But if they are standing and they get hit, you get combos on hit. And even if they block it, this is plus on block, right? This is +4 on block, which is nutty. And obviously, they made the downside of it that it whiffs on crouchers. But you can see how in a situation where Mai is using her projectiles, if you're able to interact with the projectile, you get an easy punish counter from almost anywhere on screen. It's like you don't even have to be spacing it that well. As long as you interact with the projectile first, you're going to get that punish counter. And that means massive damage. So Ryu doesn't really have the normals to reach at these ranges as consistently as Sagat has. In fact, not many characters do have this kind of interaction. Still, doing it on the fly is really tough. I fail at this pretty consistently. So it's better to do after a spacing trap like Blaz is doing by setting it up and having a conditionable pattern. But when you land it, that is massive damage for Sagat. So brilliant recognition of this interaction from Blaz, and he runs this to the bank in the match. Yeah, gets the full combo conversion into the level 3, just massive damage. Just a unique punish on Mai that most other characters are not going to have access to, and most people just haven't represented this kind of counterplay. And then in this interaction, meaty projectile to try to attack the drive gauge. Xiaohai try to wake up level 1. It's not going to work there, and that sets up the checkmate into the DI. So it's beautiful sequence here from Blaz. And excellent routing as well to get the max damage there on the stun. There's another interaction here. Blaz is trying to make the comeback. Check this out. Bagoosh.
You can't do the option select against a crouching heavy punch cancel.
And that's going to kill. So this one is a really interesting option. Now, some of you are probably already aware of what this interaction happened. Like, why did Xiaohai go for the DP here, and why did it not work? This might be, you know, old news for some of you, but I'll run through it for those who aren't familiar. A common option to interrupt pressure from drive rush cancels is to use OD reversals. If I do something like this, drive rush cancel into overhead, or drive rush cancel into a grab, it necessitates that there's a block, or sorry, a gap in between them. So if you're trying to just block it out, you might have to deal with the throw mix or deal with the overhead mix. However, if you just input the DP, you're going to interrupt both of these options every single time because there's necessarily a gap. That usually forces people to do things like stop their pressure short and go for lights, and that there's zero gap between the drive rush cancel and the light, and then you have to guess right after if they go for the grab or a button, of course. But it prevents them from overextending on their drive rush and trying to get fake pressure with gaps. If you input DP almost every single time they turn green, and then just go back to blocking. If you do that properly, then you'll just block after the drive rush cancel if they don't overextend. And if you do it properly also, if they do leave a gap, your DP will occur. So this is a super common OS. But of course, if you use heavies, you can mix them up. So if I do drive rush cancel into the heavy, this is -5 if I do nothing. If I do it from a medium, it's -6. So generally from a medium, if I try to block and do nothing, I'm going to get hit. This is part of why the OS always works. But you saw that the heavy one starts up in 5. So if I do heavy, I have the option to block to bait the reversal. Now, of course, that means I am -5. I will be punished if they decide to call it out and go for a button. But of course, then I could just leave a gap there and frame trap them. Like, you're not really necessarily going to always want to do a button here. It's a game of chicken in this situation, but that leaves the option open to bait out the reversal. So you cannot always autopilot the DP after a heavy. It's kind of a guess again for both players. and it lets you rotate the options for both players on offense and defense in this scenario. So Blaz was well aware of exactly what he needed to get the W in this instance, and that was great calculation. And you know, when you see green, you're highly incentivized, especially with low life and he's in burnout. You're Xiaohai, you think, okay, just DP beats everything here. But that's the one thing that cannot be beat by the DP after he turns green, is that crouching heavy driver's cancel. For other characters, you just use any of your heavy driver's cancel buttons. It's pretty much the same mind game. It's pretty universal. But for Sagat, it's the crouch heavy. And then super optimal conversion there. Also, you can see the usage of the crouching medium punch. Just massive range on Sagat's buttons really helps play the footsie game much more effectively against Mai than the other Shotos. So he's just cooking right there. And then here in the final round, just great decision making here. Try to chase down that back jump with a towards heavy kick. And then here, just once again, recognizing exactly what he needs to win in this scenario to make the comeback. You're probably going to lose regardless, so you might as well go for the gusto in this situation. So in this moment, when Xiaohai throws the OD fans, yes, Xiaohai could easily just walk forward and not overextend and just anti-air with DP and get the job done. In this situation, Blaz is most likely going to die, but the one way he could win is if he jumps and Xiaohai overextends or puts him in a situation where he can't properly anti-air. So what does Blaz do here? He just jumps, and Xiaohai just dashes forward trying to go for the throw mix-up. If you don't dash forward here, you don't really get a good throw mix. You just cover the jump option. But here, Xiaohai just dashes forward, gets clipped, and optimal combo conversion from Blaz. Gets the conversion to the CA, and ends up taking the set win over Xiaohai 3-1, this time with Sagat getting a little bit of revenge for that Esports World Cup set loss that cost him 120k and lets 2Game get a clean sweep over KSG with 40 points straight. So the Sagat paid dividends here for Blaz. So huge moment from day one of Street Fighter League US. And then we even had the post-match interview.
Doing the same mistakes that he did
talking
before,
about this
like
win.
Backdashing, and he knows now what he's doing right now, and he thinks Sagat is better than Ryu, maybe other characters. Much
Sagat better than Ryu?
Yes, because he had better neutral, better fireballs. Yeah, he's saying good things about Sagat, yes.
Whoa, hold on. Everybody on
Sagat better
Twitter
than
up
Ryu.
complaining about Ryu this whole time, up playing Ryu and complaining about Sagat. Every Sagat player,
it can't be
quiet. I'm tired.
It can't be.
Reno, Jibbo, all of y'all.
Yeah, everyone was running away with this quote, trying to instantly call out anyone they feel who had even potentially hinted at Sagat not being super strong. And of course, you know, Ryu is considered to be top 1, top 2 in the game up there with Mai. People are complaining about Ryu left, right, and center, myself included. And here comes Blaz, known for his Ryu, beating Xiaohai's Mai with Sagat, saying Ryu is better than or Sagat's better than Ryu, huh? Well, it turns out this was kind of a bad translation. He was saying that he thinks Sagat specifically is better than Ryu in the Mai matchup. So, and I can definitely see the vision. I can see how the range, the fireball game, and the tech to clear the projectiles and get punishes definitely adds up to having some unique advantages for Sagat in the matchup. So he didn't mean that he thinks Sagat is better overall than Ryu, but it's good to see that someone is investigating how to deal with the menace that is Mai. And it's cool to see that Blaz is continuing to evolve his game and evolve his roster and getting big W's, especially against opponents who gate-kept him from his first Super Premier win. Anyways, that's it. That's all I got for this video. Shout outs to Blaz for putting on a good show, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.